movement, gestures, facial expressions, and eye contact to express message and achieve your message and achieve your speech's purpose. Make your body language smooth and natural. Timing, 5 to 7 minutes. So at the 5-minute mark, we'll hear something. Dan?
That will do both, and there's also the green light.
See that? Okay. That's good. Cate Brabson, please.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So, just in a show of hands, who has heard of Uber, the rideshare app? Quite a few. How many people have taken an Uber car ride? Just a few. All right. So, if you haven't seen Uber, it's an app for your phone or your tablet. So, I dropped a pin this morning. I had to quickly put in Google Coffee. It says no cars available. So, nobody's up driving on Uber this morning. So Uber is a rideshare service. It owns no cars and employs no drivers. But in the last 4 years, since it started in 2010, it has essentially set the world on fire. It's operating in 120 countries, 120 cities, 37 countries. And essentially, its goal is to disrupt the existing taxi cab service model. It's going to take over the world. Uber has shaken up taxi service such that you are seeing protests in many cities in Europe and in the United States. For example, there was a giant protest about 3-4 months ago in Paris where all the taxi cab drivers essentially clogged the streets, caused complete chaos, complete traffic standstill. Why? Because their view is that Uber is unfairly competing with taxi cab service models. Taxi cab service generally, historically, has been highly regulated. You go get in a taxi cab, your meter rate is set by the locality wherever you are. For example, in Salt Lake City, we set the per mile and the per minute rate. We also set the number of taxi cabs. And that's really where the rub is when Uber comes in. So we have a limited number of taxi cabs that can be operating and providing what's called on-demand or instantaneous service. Uber says, wait a minute, we can do better. You drop a pin onto your app. Several drivers will be in that locale. You can pick one, they'll be there, and say in less than 10 minutes. If you tried Uber, I'm told, I haven't actually tried it, it works great. People show up within 5 minutes. Okay. So, in Salt Lake City, for example, since 2002, when the Olympics were here, there was a number of complaints about taxi cab service at that time. Cabs didn't show up on time, the cars were old, whatnot, and Salt Lake City has struggled with regulating taxi cab service to improve it over time. How do we do that? Do we require newer cars? Do we regulate the drivers? Do we regulate uniforms? All these kinds of things. Uber has come in and said, we're going to let competition settle all that for us. You can rate drivers on Uber. You can rate riders on Uber. So how do you become a driver? Simply sign up? Well, that causes problems. In Los Angeles, there was a case where a driver picked up a young woman from a bar, didn't take her home, took her to his house. So we have issues with background checks on drivers. There's been accidents. We have insurance problems where you have claims by the insurance company this driver is driving commercially, so their personal car insurance doesn't cover an accident. Uber says, we're going to solve all of these problems. We're going to do background checks. We're going to bring insurance to the table. In addition to the limited taxi cabs, why else do we have taxi cabs? Well, they operate 24/7. They're required to go everywhere. So in exchange for that limited monopoly, where we limit the number of taxi cabs and they don't have as much competition, we can put regulations on those cab companies and those cab drivers to make them go everywhere in the city and be available. We can also make them have a certain number of cars that provide ADA or disability enabled cars. Uber's had some interesting problems because, you know, they market themselves as we're signing up students, we're signing up soccer moms, we're just riding a few hours a week, and this is a whole new economy. This is where you create jobs, create extra pocket money for people, and what's happened is you've affected the taxi cab industry, but you're not providing these other services. Cars are not available 24/7. They're only going to the nicer areas of town where the business customers are, and they're not providing disability or ADA compatible cars. So you have a couple of car stories and anecdotes where people have taken, put a guide dog, a service dog, in the trunk of their vehicle. And the person in the car did not realize that was the case. So again, a lot of these are anecdotes. And right now, Salt Lake City is struggling because about 6 months ago, Uber came to our town. Uber's actually been in Park City the last couple of Sundance Film Festival sessions. Now come to Salt Lake. They come in, they essentially pretend there's no regulation, pretend there's no limit on all taxi cabs, and just go to town, sign up drivers. They promise those drivers they're going to make lots of money. So the question is, do we attempt to regulate? Or do we allow free market competition? Different cities around the world are taking vastly different approaches. In Germany, for example, they banned Uber. Seoul, Korea, they banned Uber. Chicago attempted to regulate Uber. San Francisco and Los Angeles totally embraced Uber. The question is, ultimately, long-term, will they disrupt the industry enough that they will become a new market provider? That remains to be seen. There is this constant tension between regulation, free market, and competition. What's interesting now, have knockoffs, have other companies doing what Lyft is doing, and our local taxi cab companies in Salt Lake City have their own apps. You have competitors like Lyft. You've heard of that. They have the mustache on the front of their car so they can be recognizable. So ultimately, at the end of the day, Uber set out to change the world. They're valued at $17 billion. Fascinating to see where we end up. This is Toastmasters.